The quality of what John Lasseter produced cannot be touched. Those movies will always stand the test of time. The original Pixar, under his leadership, will always stand the test of time. It'll just be Bob Iger's version that goes down in flames. Much like George Lucas's Lucasfilm will always be held in high regard. Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm, not so much.
Disney is in a free fall. They've lost so much money. They've lost so many investor dollars over the years, and things do not appear to be getting better. And it doesn't appear that Bob Iger and Disney are even willing to admit why they're in such terrible positions right now, Sparrow.
No, it's it's macroeconomic headwinds. It's COVID. All these things. All these things that Bob Iger keeps trotting out. Oh, Bob Chapek, the 9 months or whatever that Bob Chapek was quote unquote in charge. While Bob Iger was still pulling the strings behind the scenes. That's why they're in the situation that they're in. But don't worry, they're gonna focus on quality instead of quantity.
But we just had this poll come out to show where their net rating, I think, is at -3 now or whatever. And it's all based on the fact that they pivoted as a company from doing wholesome family entertainment into doing basically LGBTQ propaganda films and trying to deliver it to children. Yet he refuses to acknowledge any of that stuff.
No. He even said, people are saying that we're too woke. I don't even know what that means. That you know exactly what. There's all kinds of people out there talking about it, Bob. There's all kinds of people talking about the failing year company. You could go watch Clownfish TV. You could go watch WDW Pro. You could watch Valiant Renegade. You could watch Doomcock. Everybody is out there with tons of content talking about the failings of Disney, but you don't want to admit it. You just don't want to admit it, because you want to stay in your little bubble. You want to keep playing this little baby goo goo gaga game of, it's just all these other things. No, it's the decisions that you made with the company. It's killed Pixar. You just laid off 15% of Pixar because, you were so afraid of John Lasseter taking your job. You had to, use an excuse to get him forced out. And then you put Jennifer Lee in charge, and she hired all of Tumblr and put out a bunch of Tumblr movies like Turning Red and that tanked Pixar. So they don't have a good reputation anymore. Every one of your brands is in the toilet. You have managed this company into the ground, and it's your fault, Bob. It's not macroeconomic headwinds. It's not COVID. It's the fact that you don't know what the hell you're doing. And you can preach all day about how you're going to pivot to quality over quantity. Quantity is not the problem if you're producing good quality content. We will take all of the good quality films, all of the good quality shows, all of the good quality Star Wars and Marvel that you can give us. The problem is you don't know what quality is because you're just a weatherman that was promoted way above his station. And it all looked good while you were able to just acquire and assimilate. But once you assimilated all those things and you actually had to create within those properties, within those franchises, you don't know what you're doing.
Pixar is definitely the latest victim of Bob Iger's vision for Disney, which we'll get to here in a second. But first up, Disney CEO Bob Iger gave a mea culpa for big losses incurred while launching streaming platforms like Disney Plus during an investor conference appearance last week. As we got into the streaming business in a very, very aggressive way, we tried to tell too many stories. Basically, we invested too much, way ahead of possible returns. It's what led to streaming ending up as a $4 billion loss, stated Iger. $4 billion lost on Disney Plus thus far, and it's still not a very good platform. It doesn't run as good as Netflix. It's not as stable as Netflix. And they can say they invested far too much money into Disney Plus programming, but when you look at the amount of new material coming on Netflix and compare it to Disney, it's not even funny how much stuff they aren't putting out on a regular basis.
No, it's you rarely get anything new, and if you do, it's garbage like Ahsoka. It's garbage like I'm sure The Acolyte is going to be. They don't know what they're doing creatively. They don't know who to put in charge. Anybody who is smart enough to right the ship is a threat to Bob Iger's position. So he can't have competent people in there. And so what he's trying to do is he's trying to maneuver everything. And maybe we can just, dress up these pigs and people will think they're beautiful and people will get into them because, he had the idea that it didn't matter. It was the brand, not the project, not the story, not the, the actual quality content made for families. It was the brand. The Disney brand was always going to be fine because the Disney drones were just going to eat the slop. The Star Wars drones were just going to eat the slop. Remember, he actually said, we don't even have to advertise Galaxy's Edge because it's just Star Wars and people will show up. And then they didn't. They didn't, and you produced something that isn't even really Star Wars. It's just some garbage Moroccan flea market with a couple of droids for sale on tables. It's a complete disaster.
Yeah, I think what he failed to realize, while the Disney brand itself is very lucrative and it's certainly strong and people recognize it, it's the audience that came along with the Disney brand. People looking for things that they can share with their children and not have to worry about. And he's basically burned that entire reputation down to the ground in a matter of months, and they've never truly recovered. And the worst part is, Aaron, he's never truly tried to recover it. He's never reached out and said, you know what? We made mistakes. This is what we're going to do to make it better. He's never said, you know what? This wasn't the right direction for our platform. This isn't what we should be doing with our company. He's just said, you know what? It was the pandemic. We went too much quantity over quality. And that's what really did us in, not realizing that he's turned off all of the audience that's come with Disney over, 100 years at this point? And he managed to destroy it in a matter of months.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. You took your audience for granted, which, you should never do. You just thought that they would stick around, and then you could go and you could get this new audience that you wanted, this very small demographic. But, your studies showed that this demographic spends money. Well, guess what? They may, but it's not enough of a demographic to make up for all of the people that you lost by catering almost exclusively to that demographic. It's a bad idea. And we're seeing that fail again and again and again. And it's finally starting to reverberate within the the ideological chambers of these CEOs' brains, that making content that turns off the majority of your audience by catering to a minuscule audience does not equal success. That's something that anybody could have told them right off the bat, any normal person, any thinking person. But this is the problem with ideologues, is they'll look at guys like us, like people that are out there complaining, and they'll say, oh, well, those people and their complaints and blah, 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 they don't matter, because they can't separate the messenger from the message. Once you can do that, you will be successful. You will be better off than the majority of people in the world, because it doesn't matter to me who it is that's saying something if what they're saying is logical and makes sense and can be backed up by empirical evidence. It doesn't matter if I find the messenger odious, or if I disagree with them politically or whatever it is. If they are talking sense, I can recognize it. And that's something that ideologues can't do.
And I think they found out along the way that audience, that new theoretical audience they really wanted, don't actually spend money on what they want to be entertained by. They spend their time and money on social media, and that's basically where it ends with their support for a brand and entertainment and stuff like that. The results of spending more on content than could be turned to profit resulted in volume and not quality, which turned out to be a mistake. Iger added, the Disney boss conceded volume was required to win the streaming wars against rivals like Netflix and Prime Video, but he added, there's a fine line that you can cross and get in trouble if your volume ends up diluting management's attention to what is being made is right. And that's what's happened to us. So I have pulled that back. Iger told the conference, once again, just saying it's a quantity over quality problem and not realizing where their quality problem actually started.
The problem is that all the quantity helped. Yeah, did it help dilute the quality of the product? Perhaps. But the problem really is that all of the ideology that you tried to stuff in was antithetical to the desires of your audience. That's not what your audience is there for. That's not what your audience wants. And you chased your audience away. So it doesn't matter whether or not you produced less shows. If those shows were the same shows that you produced, let's say you just take out half of them. Say you never released half of those. You would still be in the same position, because the other half of the things that you did produce are the same hot garbage that nobody wants.
Yeah, you still would have made, was it Falcon and the Winter Soldier? And you would still have the clips out there with Falcon Cap. You need to do better, Senator, talking about how we should be supporting the terrorists and we can't call the terrorists terrorists. And maybe they're really the people that we should be feeling bad for, even though they literally just beheaded a hero by that point.
Yeah, they blew up a whole building full of innocent people and burned them alive. Don't you?
Captain America apparently supported.
Yeah, got to stop calling them terrorists. I don't know. That sounds like terrorists to me. Let's see. You're forcing an ideology through violence and intimidation and fear. I think that's the literal definition of terrorism.
They even took something as obscure as Willow. Willow was like right in my wheelhouse. This is something I liked as a kid. I know it wasn't a big thing, but I love Mad Mardigan. I'm all about some Willow and the Pix and all that kind of stuff. And I think the line is the princess needs a hairy chest or whatever. is great.
She's not going to want it. She's not going to want to. Yeah, she's not going to want to cheer. You know, she's the Laura Dannon's not going to want a hairy chest.
And they went out there and made a Willow miniseries for everybody in the world but people that liked Willow. Like, where's the accountability to these types of stupid decisions?
Well, maybe people are a little tired of you taking every one of the heroes and trying to use them as nostalgia bait. But the way that you do it is, well, you know, now they're depressed and miserable and they're just really sad. Han Solo, he and Princess Leia broke up and their kid turned to the dark side and they're both just really sad. Oh, what are you going to do with Indiana Jones? His son died in Vietnam and he's just broken and really sad. What are you going to do with Nick Fury? He's just sad. Sad and he's broken and he's useless. You know, like, oh, okay. All right. Do you have any other? What about Willow? Sad and broken and useless. Oh, thanks. Cool. Awesome. So glad you got me back with that nostalgia bait to see the thing I love, degraded right in front of my face. And they did it with Luke Skywalker. Oh, he's just sad and miserable and he hates the Force and he hates the Jedi. And then you look at Mark Hamill in real life and you're like, oh, he's just sad and miserable. And it's like, stop it. Stop it.
The only thing I'm happy is that we're not just focusing on American properties now, because Bob Iger and Disney have gone out of their way to destroy Doctor Who now too. So screw you, Britain. You have to suffer along with us.
At least they didn't make Doctor Who sad and miserable. They just made him lame and gay.
And fabulous.
Yeah. Well, good for Joe. You know what? I'm happy for Jodie Whittaker because at least she dodged the bullet of being the person who would go down in history as the one who, the worst doctor ever. And now we got this clown.
Well, of course, for every bad decision, there's always repercussions for that. And of course, the people like a Bob Iger and your Kevin Feige's and your Kathleen Kennedy's will never actually be the ones to suffer those bad repercussions for bad decisions. The latest example being Pixar. The long-expected layoffs at Pixar Animation Studios have begun. Leadership at the storied company that traces its origin to the late Steve Jobs was bought by Disney in 2006 and will notify employees of the reductions. It's the biggest restructuring in Pixar's history, although top leadership isn't impacted. Approximately 14% of Pixar's workforce, or around 175 employees, will be let go.
It's never the people that make the disastrous decisions that pay the price, is it? It's always the front line. It's always the people that are just doing their jobs, and I'm sure there's some people in there that need to go. But I'm sure that the bulk of them are probably people who just have been there for a long time, who've worked hard, who've contributed to the overall success of Pixar over the decades. I'm sure a lot of them are losing their jobs. And why? Because Bob Iger's an idiot, because Jennifer Lee is incompetent, because the decision makers make terrible decisions and put out product that people don't want. And they hired a bunch of people from Tumblr and from Reddit and, inserted them into Pixar and basically destroyed everything that John Lasseter had built. But the people responsible for those decisions, don't worry, they're unaffected. They get to keep their jobs. They get to keep their bonuses. It's the rank and file that loses their jobs.
But I think the initial downfall of almost any company is when they stop valuing merit as the number one point of entry into the company, or the main reason why you get promoted. Once you stop thinking about, did they make us money? Did they do a good job? Were they good employees? Did they foster esprit de corps? Did they actually do a fucking stellar job to earn this promotion? When you start thinking about it, like, do they set the right example? Is that the right picture that I want associated with my company? Once you stop thinking about merit and you start thinking about optics, and what's it going to look like when there's an interview? Are we going to get access to Out Magazine now because now we have a gay executive or whatever? Once you stop thinking about who's doing the best job and you think about who looks like they could be doing the best job because they take the best photo op, you're almost at the point where you're going to destroy your company.
If you do get that article in Out Magazine, or you do get that GLAAD award, or you do get the Advocate to run an article on you, how many people does that actually bring in? What do you think that benefits you? It gets you some kudos in the media, but does it translate into sales? And this is, when we talk about comics, when we talk about everything, like I've said it on the show before, my question in being the editor-in-chief or being the CEO or whatever it is, whatever somebody brings to you and says, we want to do this, my first question is, and how does this make us money? How does this make us money? Hey, you want to turn Robin gay? Megan Fitzmartin? Explain to me how that's going to make us money. Well, it'll get us some write-ups and it'll get us, get me a GLAAD award. Okay, that's not enough. It'll destroy Robin with the fan base going forward, and he won't be a marketable character anymore. We won't be able to use Tim Drake in a real way ever again. That's not beneficial to the company. So no, we're not going to do it.
Absolutely.
He's got an established history.
It doesn't make sense.
Damn straight.
Finally, there were layoffs across all of Disney last year, but cuts at Pixar were delayed because of production schedules, sources say. The once invincible animation studio suffered a major setback during the pandemic era when the Chapek regime decided to send Luca, Soul, and Turning Red straight to Disney+, even though cinemas had begun to reopen or were in full recovery mode. And then its first post-COVID theatrical release, Lightyear, was mostly dismissed by critics and audiences, exposing Pixar to ongoing scrutiny. And they haven't had a real hit, I think, in 8 years at this point. It might be actually longer than that since they've had a big hit from Pixar. And Lightyear obviously suffered dramatically. Elemental didn't lose money, and they're considering that the big success, Aaron.
I'm hearing Elemental did lose money. I'm hearing we don't know the full story on Elemental yet. It's going to come out eventually that they did not even break even on Elemental, apparently.
Well, that's what they're crowing about. That's the big success they had. In the past, to have a successful Disney Pixar movie, you needed to hit $1 billion minimum. And now it's, well, it kind of did $500 million worldwide and might have broken even. And that's the fucking high watermark. That's how much they destroyed Pixar.
What was their last success? Was it Coco? Was it Toy Story 4? What was the last thing that they made that made money?
It's got to be Toy Story 4.
Coco was the last thing that I enjoyed.
It's crazy what's happened to this company. These guys used to be bulletproof. Pixar, even the movies that didn't do as well as the other ones, were still great. Like the Good Dinosaur or whatever, perfectly fine movie. You know, it didn't blow up the box office, but you can watch that with your kids, and it's a fun, entertaining, really good movie. And now all of a sudden, they can't put out hits, and they're obviously banking on Inside Out 2, which looks like it's more of this new modern fangled Disney where we're shoving agenda in over a story that actually makes sense.
I wonder if that's going to get cut because they need that to make money. So I wonder if if all the, Riley's non-binary, Riley's got a crush on a girl. I wonder if all of that's going to get cut out and changed because now they're in a situation where it's like, that has to make some money. I don't know. We might see it change.
We know there will be a cut edition if they want to release it overseas.
Mm-hmm. And, the question is, if you believe in this so much, either stick to your guns and release it everywhere and then take the hit if Saudi Arabia or China's like, yeah, we're not going to have this LGBT content in here, then, say, well, then you know what? You don't get our movie, and they'll be fine with it, and you'll be fine with it, and you will have stood up for, your strongly held convictions. Or you could just do the China-Saudi Arabia version and release that one in America too, have one version of the movie without all the agenda in it, and then Americans will go see it as well. But for some reason, the audience keeps telling you, we don't want this. And you keep saying, well, too bad, you're going to get it. But you don't do it the world over. You don't do it in the places that really need it.
Yeah,
if you believe in this agenda, that's where it's really needed.
For a long time, you could go to Quentin Tarantino, you could go to Christopher Nolan, and you could go to Pixar for new original ideas, making it into movie theaters and being done in high quality. And now we're not even going to get that. Everything Pixar is going to put out for the foreseeable future will just be reboots and fucking sequels.
Well, listen, Pixar is eventually going to get folded into Disney Animation. It's going to be one big entity. It'll just be Disney Pixar, and it'll all be in, the executives will all be in Burbank, and they'll sell off that big, expensive, beautiful campus that I've been to several times, up in Emeryville. It'll be a damn shame. It's a damn shame to see what Bob Iger did to not only John Lasseter, but to John Lasseter's legacy. Fortunately, the quality of what John Lasseter produced cannot be touched. Those movies will always stand the test of time. The original Pixar under his leadership will always stand the test of time. It'll just be Bob Iger's version that goes down in flames. Much like George Lucas's Lucasfilm will always be held in high regard. Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm, not so much.
The one thing is certain, Bob Iger and Disney are hell-bent on never actually acknowledging or addressing what's actually destroyed their business. They're just going to act like none of this stuff ever happened. I do want to say thank you very much to Aaron Sparrow for joining me. This is 20 minutes of a 2.5-hour podcast called The Geek Fix. If you would like the entire conversation, you do have to go over to Thinking Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description if you would like to support us over there as well.